So just make sure they're set and working properly. And while at it, I'll just pop Jamie in here because I know he's going to be at work soon, but it's just so we can maybe listen in. So there you are, Jamie. You can listen to us before you have to go to work. Listen to us before you have to go to work. 1 second.
Now recording.
Right, everyone. So welcome to the Open Access Assembly meeting, the international monthly TZM meeting that is hosted on the Zeitgeist Movement's Discord server. And here we usually are basically connecting and sharing updates in what we are doing in what part of the world or in parts of the Zeitgeist movements we are active in, as well as sharing some other very interesting things that are in relation to what the goals of the movement are or of post-scarcity in general, and just trying to make a world that is geared towards not at the expense of some kind of strange economic paradigms or things like this nonsense, but something that's based off of the well-being of people, and that we can just simply live in a better social system altogether. And that's something that all of us have been, I would say, really very hard trying to make happen for as long as the movement's been around for 14 years. And today for this meeting, though, we have the agenda more or less very specifically set on a single agenda item for the most part now. That one of these people that fought really hard for a really good half of their life to make the goals of the movement realized and seen is no longer with us today. Gilbert Ismail. Before I actually continue and we go on and speak about who Gilbert was, for any of those that did not know him, I'm just going to simply ask for a minute of silence, just out of just some traditional respect that we normally do when someone very meaningful to us is no longer with us. So just 1 minute of silence, I ask, please. Continuing on. So Gilbert Ismail was one of the first wave activists of the Zeitgeist movement, who basically, like many people who were very inspired by the work of Peter Joseph, his documentary films, namely the Zeitgeist trilogy, or at the time it was two films when the movement was founded, inspired from the works of Peter Joseph and also that of the Venus Project that was being presented and by the from the Zeitgeist films and Jacques Fresco, who founded that project. Gilbert was a uh, very basically active and inspired, full of energy, very driven, again, young individual who, when this movement started, and there was not really any kind of structure or there was any kind of a platform yet. There was basically the Zeitgeist movement, and perhaps you may even say it's like a void of some kind. There wasn't anything built or any kind of foundation made. Well, Gilbert, I would say, would be the person that created that foundation, or at least he created the very first layer of it, the very first, if you will, alpha or beta version of what that is, and for example, like where we are now and what we have become, or what we now utilize to communicate and basically spread the message of the and the values that we want to see more light in the world, basically. And Gilbert was that person with all that energy that was definitely going out of his way when he was around, yeah, he was 19 when he got involved, and he was bringing all the people together and or finding people and getting them from where he was living in the Netherlands. He was Dutch, and he was getting people from there together and then finding out others in Europe and then of course in the United States. And he was responsible for hosting the very first international online meeting, which was used via TeamSpeak. And that, of course, was a very interesting chapter of the movement's history of how we all got together and got to know each other and connect and whatnot. And again, Gilbert was very much behind a lot of that. Also, he was doing things such as moderating the original forum that was created for the movement. He was also doing helping host several events in the Netherlands, as well as he was acting as a host for global events as well. And there were other things that he was involved in doing that was of significance or of assistance to the movement. And of course, he was very into the networking and as well as communicating with so many different people inside and out of the movement. And so he had his hands really tied, basically, and was doing a lot. Um, I'm just gonna say that, of course, between me and Gilbert, I cannot say that he and I had. I mean, I would say that we did have a really good relationship for the most part. The last few years that I think a lot of us knew were a very difficult time for Gilbert and his life. And I unfortunately did not have the privilege of really keeping that relationship going like it was before. And there were some things that he was also doing and stuff that I learned that he also did in the past that I really strongly disagreed with. And I became both very against and very furious against Gilbert on many certain matters. Whatever they were, though, I'll describe them in my own, or I'll go into basically the history between me and Gilbert a little later. Um, the point is that I think all of us can understand that Gilbert was a human being and that he was flawed like every and each and one of us are, and we see the things in him that we strongly disliked that made us whatever hate certain things or be afraid of certain things and ultimately very love certain things about him and what we see in other people and all ourselves and whatnot. So that's why, of course, and this is especially someone who has had a very key and had a very important role back in the early days of the Zeitgeist movement. And it only hurts me so much to say that not only was he not no longer involved in the movement as for some time, but and there was that hope that he was perhaps going to return and maybe we would collaborate again further. Um, it's extremely depressing to now know that, at 34 years young, that he's not physically here with us anymore. I want to, of course, this is not going to just be me talking the whole time about who he was and whatnot, but we do have, of course, I want you all to, everyone that's present with us at this meeting, to express their condolences or their stories about him, since this is what we want to do for this very special occasion today, basically, a tragic occasion as well. There's one thing I will read aloud, and that is the recent post from Kees de Long from the Netherlands, who is almost like a neighbor. He was a good friend, and he's also a fellow TZM activist of the Zeitgeist movement in the Netherlands. And he also, ironically, is assisting with the new forums that he put together a little over a year and a half ago. I think in honor of Gilbert and that he was from the Netherlands, and it was with the people from the Netherlands that he was strongly and he was strongly bonded with, and I think it is they, people like Case or Serf Dolzenberg, who will be missing him especially a lot. I'm going to read first Case's post in history before we move on. So Case wrote, this is originally written in Dutch, and I've quickly translated in English, and so I apologize to Case in advance if there's something that may have been mistranslated, but I think for the most part, since my Dutch I don't think is quite bad, it seemed to be quite accurate with what Case had described. He says, I met Gilbert on an online forum around 2008, 14 years ago. We were both young then. His username was Dark Dancer. At that moment, I immediately got to know Gilbert's greatest passions, dancing, and his deep commitment to a better world. That online forum belonged to the Zeitgeist movement, an international movement that would like to unite humanity towards a more sustainable and social world. I remember that at the time, he wanted to discuss some plans personally, so he asked for my number. After I sent him my number, my phone rang pretty quickly. At the time, I still lived with my parents in the countryside where there was poor mobile coverage. I therefore had to sprint outside quickly onto land to get at least a dash of range. A little out of breath, we started our first conversation. I can't remember the exact details of the conversation. I do remember my first impression as overwhelmed. Over the phone, he radiated a confident and gentle personality with a strong focus on doing a job. During that one call, it was very quickly decided that we would make a website for the Dutch Zeitgeist movement and many other plans. We have done this, but by no means alone. It was the beginning of a very interesting chapter for many in the Netherlands. But not only in the Netherlands, he had also sent many people in the same direction internationally. An international network quickly emerged that still exists today, and we owe it in part to Gilbert. Gilbert organized many things for the movement, such as the annual international meetings where he himself presented to more than 1,000 people. He also spent a lot of his spare time answering emails from people with various questions. He has also facilitated international online meetings for many years. We have had a fantastic journey together. The highlights for me was that in 2010, we were allowed to accompany Jacques Fresco and Roxanne Meadows of the Venus Project through the Netherlands for a week. This project by Jacques and Roxanne could possibly form a blueprint for a better future for humanity. Gilbert has organized many similar activities that have left an indelible impression on many. I am extremely grateful to Gilbert and all the people involved in this. You could count on Gilbert in front of and behind the scenes. Over the years, I discovered that we not only share the same vision of the future for humanity, but also the same hobbies, such as, for example, gaming, watching series, especially science fiction. And if COVID had gotten in the way, Gilbert would have given my wife and I dance lessons for our wedding, where Gilbert would no doubt have gone wild too. This Sunday, I was visiting my parents. The mobile connection there has only partially improved since 2008. I spoke to Surf of the Dutch Zeitgeist movement on the phone. Through him, I heard the terrible news that Gilbert had passed away. Gilbert, we will miss you as a good friend, as well as your passion for the movement and high standards you have always strived for. And that was from Case. And I guess I missed out on that one little part though, is that it was actually I that called Serf. Because I found out via social media through Gilbert's profile, because I just stumbled upon it randomly. And I started reading a whole bunch of rest in peace and a whole bunch of Dutch condolences. At first, I thought it may have been because somebody in Gilbert's family had passed away, or a sibling, I'm not sure. But then it became very clear that they were referring to him. And I called Surf immediately, Surf Dozenberg in the Netherlands, to confirm this. And when I called him, I haven't spoken to Surf in quite some months, over a half a year, I would think. And he was expecting that maybe we were gonna, he was gonna tell me he was gonna go on a picnic. He was in the park. He was gonna read a book, and he was gonna have a really nice day. That was the plan. And of course, I told him, but look, you gotta tell me if this is true, man. I mean, you know, I told him and I asked him the question, and I asked him, uh, Gilbert is dead. And then it was silent for for a moment, and I asked Seraph then, "Did you understand what I said?" And he said, "I understood you, but I'm hoping that I actually didn't." And I said, "Well, you tell me, is it true or not? Because this is apparently what I've been confirmed from social media." Yeah, and so, very interesting. The bot seems to, for whatever reason, want to disconnect. Let me just turn it back on.
Now recording.
Right. Well, basically cut the chase, it was because of that call that I made to Surf that he called Case, and then Case immediately wrote that long message that I just well, he made a blog post on the Dutch website, and that's where then I called also then, or I didn't call, but I emailed immediately the founder of the movement, Peter Joseph, and I think others contacted him as well. And I think I my inbox on Discord has been absolutely full with so many condolences and people asking questions about what happened and how, and etc. It's been a very interesting few days, to say the least. Um, and we do have some messages from some people that could not be with us today. And but first, I would like to ask if anybody would also like to share any stories or any sympathies for Gilbert as of now.
I can go ahead.
Please, Brandon.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that, Cliff. Um, Give me 1 second, actually. Yeah. Um, so, yeah, thanks for the kind words, Cliff, on that. And uh, yeah, just walking with a heavy heart. Obviously, the past few days, having found out about the news, and I can kind of tell you one of my last memories with Gil that I remember. One of the only like physical in-person memories I had with him was when I went to Germany and had the opportunity over there to give a talk, and he and I were backstage and discussing what we were going to talk about, and the nerves were really getting to us. We were kind of speakers that were going on later in the event. This is for Zeitgeist Day in Germany in 2015, and we both had important talks. I mean, it's you fly over all the way to internationally to somewhere. It's obviously the movement, and you want your ideas to come across. You want to inspire people, and it matters, and such and such. And I just remember him, he and I just sharing, just trying to get through it, and him just having a big smile on his face, and just being really human and obviously warm, and that's why people loved him, because he got up there on stage and he was just that, just warm and happy and just human, and he really got the he really understood the need to set a proper foundation for the movement. And he was always focused on that and didn't really skip ahead of it. He always was really focused on the foundation of what was needed to network the movement, network people, network ideas, and build this thing the right way. And I remember he, as was mentioned, he was extremely young when he took over, and he was 21. I don't know if it was mentioned actually. 21 when he took over the international coordinator position, and it was impressive what he did. He was confident, and he had to have conviction, and he had to have maturity, beyond his years. And I think he did great. Uh, I think that he laid a foundation which we all follow to this day. He the movement wouldn't be what it was or what it is now without him having kind of laid uh, that foundation down. He did a ton of work with chapters guides and laying out what people can do, how to get active, how to form chapters, and whatnot. Gil also was really good with these global campaigns. And here, excuse me one second. Bit of street noise out here, but yeah, Gilbert was. He also was. Remember him for his global initiatives, his global campaigns that he launched, and one of the popular ones that people may remember is the World Hunger Solved campaign, where we point out the basic epiphany and basic you know just goal that we can technically solve world hunger, through technology and modern science if we wanted to. And he had other global initiatives too, and I think those will become more and more relevant and are relevant. And we take that forward now. I mean, we do need to continue to have global campaigns where we can unify as one movement around specific causes and specific messaging and whatnot. But to do that, we have to kind of get on page more, and know who we are, what our objectives are, what our goals are, and such, and then we can do stuff like that. That's for another conversation. But so yeah, one of the I was going to read the last words that Gil said to me. Um, one second. And it was, regardless of anything, I'm here with a heart. So he's with us, a life well lived. He contributed to society. He gave more value to this society and to the future of human civilization, than he consumed, than he took. Put others and the future of this beautiful planet and beautiful species and all the potentials we have before even his own life. He sacrificed enormous time, put up with enormous adversity, and I forever admire him for that. And yeah, he walks with us as we go forward, always.
That was really well said, Brandon. Of course, Bill. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm not gonna be as happy with I got to be real. Basically, I watched Gilbert get appointed to the role basically back, what was it, a decade or so ago, and I wasn't feeling good, and I was right for not feeling good when that occurred. But I will say he was the only guy that stood up during that time when Peter needed somebody to stand up. And no matter what, I'm going to give you my respect. I even when I did the recent interview as of 2019, I could appreciate any individual that wants to step up. Even if I think they were already given a chance and they had failed miserably, I can respect a person for wanting to stand back up again and get over it and get back to it. Most of my dealings with Gilbert were not good. He would say probably pleasurable in that respect. And to be fair, you either love me or hate me, basically. It's either 1 or 0. It's never really in between. And could be my personality type. I don't know. But I don't want to sit here and bash Gilbert. I could do it for hours on end on the things that he did. I will say that he did the best he could with the knowledge he had at hand. And I firmly believe he had no ill will towards the movement per se. I believe he wanted to do the best he could in trying to help people at the end of the day. I just don't think he was the man for the job, basically. But regardless of that, he tried to do something where no one else wanted to, and I can appreciate that. And I may not agree with probably most of what he did. I can appreciate the fact he did stand up, and when he got knocked down, he got back up again, basically. The end. Sorry.
I think that was really, especially just not. I don't want to begin the story on that, but I mean between you two that actually had quite. If I should say the animosity or just you both had quite a long conflict. I mean that's pretty beautiful what you said, Bill, and thank you for sharing it, of course.
Yeah, I mean every word for it. Even towards people that I would deem like the worst people, and he's certainly not the worst. There is positive in what he does, and I do appreciate that. It wasn't hard for me to say that because it was the truth, basically, and it's never hard to say the truth, and that's absolutely mean everything I said right there.
It's very cool. It's beautiful, as I said. Um, I want to ask though for anybody else that would like to share any thoughts on Gilbert, and I was actually thinking about you, Tom, if you would like to speak up and share something.
Um, well, these sort of things are always really difficult for me. I've never been good at saying words at funerals and stuff. But I suppose what I can say is that I had quite a lot of interactions with Gilbert. And I apologies, my phone is ringing. I'll say my piece afterwards. I need to take this phone call. I'm really sorry.
No problem. We'll go back to you in a second. Um, Maybe Sean, would you like to share something?
Yo, yo. I actually have had no interaction with Gilbert, so I don't really have too much to share. I just seen him from the background, and from what everyone says, it's basically what I've picked up off him, that he was very extremely dedicated, and he was an important part to the movement, which I really respect. You know, um, for him to get that much respect and push as much as he did is very respectable. You know, you can tell from like what people said before that he was very passionate, you know, and really cared about the integrity of the movement, you know, which is really important in this day and age. So, yeah, I don't really have too much I can personally say because I never had any interaction with him at all. I didn't even cross paths, so that's just the way life is, I guess. And yeah, I'm just happy to hear all about it and take it all in and pay my respects and yeah, sending love to him and his family. And it's really good to just learn more about him and you know what he was all about. But yeah, from what I can tell, he is yeah, very dedicated, very passionate, and really cared a lot. You know what I mean? He was very serious about the integrity, which is not easy to do when it's such an easy thing to be ridiculed by, and to wear that on your sleeve and to really go out of your way to keep the integrity of it is a very bold, you know, personality trait to have, and I got much respect and love for that. But I'm just here soaking it all up and having a listen and seeing what else I can learn. And that's about all I've really got for now. But yeah, thank you all. I really appreciate it.
Thank you as well, Sean. And yeah, it doesn't take much. As in what I mean to say is you don't have to even necessarily have known the person directly. I mean, there are so many people that we've never met in our lives, or people that existed centuries or different time eras before we've been alive, that had a lot of influence and they had a lot of they were very responsible for a lot of the things and structures that we are currently using or that we are personally involved in with our personal lives today. And again, even as Brandon said, I mean, here we are in a global international TZM meeting, and I mean, it's no longer on Discord, or excuse me, it's not on TeamSpeak anymore, but it is on the Discord platform. But I mean, the format is almost still the same, changed just a little bit. But I mean, that was what Gilbert did, and yeah, you never knew him, uh, Sean, or you didn't know him personally. You didn't whatever encounter him, but you are, however, in a kind of you're involved in a kind of construct that was kind of set up by him, by a 19-year-old Dutch boy that wanted to get people together to change the world. So there you go. Everything's connected. Um, yeah, but I don't. I'll perhaps give Tom a little bit more time in case if he has to finish up this phone call still. I was wondering maybe Andre, if you would like to share something.
I just actually really wanted to say something. Thank you. It was good timing. I have to say, I also didn't know him personally. I only met him, I think, 4 or 5 times in my life. But having joined the movement actively um, in 2015 from Z Day in Berlin, or Zeitgeist Day in Berlin, sorry. Um, I think he was one of the first faces that I really connected the movement to. Because if I recall it right, he was the first speaker in Berlin in 2015. I'm not too sure about it, but I think he was one of the first 1 or 2 speakers. And so he became a face of the movement to me, um, and I really have to say it was a positive one at that time. Absolutely, like other people already said and told, he had very quite a motivation and a motivational way to speak, and I think the way he spoke to other people also had the capacity and the ability to motivate other people and to make them want to join the movement and want to get active. So um, I think didn't only have a motivation for himself, but also he really was a person, I think, who could motivate other people in taking part in joining the movement and getting active themselves. And due to that, I really think, although his last years might not have been the most positive one for us, for the movement, I think he really had a positive effect, like what you just said, Cliff, about that we are basically still using ways of communication that he established back in the days. And I think even in the bad times of the last years, when he wanted to really eagerly to come back to the movement and again fit a role that maybe has more to decide and more to and more meaning to. Um, I think he still had this will to give his part and still had the will to be of importance for the movement. Maybe it was also mixed up with personal problems he had in that time, and maybe he also wanted to get back to the one big thing of his life that really meant a lot to him, and uh, he gave energy for it, and I guess he got energy back in doing so, and maybe that's also a reason for he wanted to come back so much, so hard, even too hard. And yeah, I would like to remember him as this motivational figure that I met him at. And yeah, I hope most of us can, no matter what happened the last years. And yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say.
Wunderschön. Beautiful. Um, Tom, can we go back to you now? Um, okay, yeah, Brandon, you want to say something?
Yeah, just that. I mean, you have to keep in mind that this, I mean, person that Gilbert suffered from, it just became, you know, not himself the past few years due to whatever health issues that, caused him to, you know, not be with us anymore. But uh, as everyone's kind of saying already, like, remember him for what he was and, like, you know, how we really know him, because the past few years just he wasn't himself. It, but yeah. Um, but I also was going to say too. I remember early on in the movement, because I was my buddy Jason here in California, that I know he would have a lot of things to say about too, and Jen Wilding and Neil Kiernan, who were big international coordinators and helped Gilbert a lot. And I know send their regards and thoughts. I've reached out to a few of them, and I know Peter sends his regards as well. Put out a statement we can read if we think that would be good, Cliff. Maybe just
Absolutely.
that.
Go,
I just
go, go for
remember.
it.
Oh no, you can go. I'll let you do it. But I was just gonna say, just you want
No,
me to
no,
do
no,
it?
no. I want you to do it, Brandon. Go
Oh,
for it.
okay. All right. Let me just do that one second.
should be still one of the very last recent posts on the TZM Global page.
I'm back, by the way. Sorry about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Let Brandon read this piece, and then you can then go, Tom.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's from Peters. He said, very sad to hear about the untimely death of my friend Gilbert Ismail, a delicate soul and dedicated activist who was a founding organizer for the Zeitgeist movement many years ago. Of the countless events we've had since 2009, Gilbert was always right there helping to organize and develop content to help improve the world. He will be missed. Rest in power, my friend. Yeah, I know he and Peter were really close. Obviously, worked together, and as Bill said earlier, you got to admire anyone who just takes on that position at that tense time of viral, interest. This massive global movement spawns, and it was, I'm sure, a really difficult position. But yeah, Tom, did you say you're? I'll yield the mic.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. Yeah, I'm really sorry about that. That was family, very important. So I'm sorry about that. So as I was saying, I find these things a little bit difficult, but I will try my best. I spoke to Gilbert quite a lot, sort of, well, a year or so ago, for quite some time, and I got to speak to him on a very personal level about a lot of things, and really got to see the the human side of him, and it was very clear that, as we all do, go through a lot of difficult times in this very difficult world. He was going through some, difficult experiences, and it's no wonder, because, as I've heard a few of you say, taking on that role, that position in a movement this big, and having that much attention put on you, that much focus, that all those expectations placed on somebody is a very big burden to have, and it's it wears people down, and he really did put a lot of his time, effort, his life into what he believed, what he believed in, and what he felt was the the right thing to do, and I do admire his the sheer amount of drive that he had as a person. He really wanted to see results, and he really was trying to push for something that I think we all wanted to see happen and manifest. And so it's very sad to hear that that this has happened to him. And I think it's important that we try and put more of a focus in this movement on well-being and taking care of each other and checking in with each other and making sure each other's okay, because a lot of people in this world are really struggling, and we all need the help. We all need that hand on our back, and we all need that love, care, and attention. And so I think it's really important that we try and foster that in our community. And yes, sorry, I'm not very good at this, but I think that the last message that Gilbert sent to me, the very, very, very last one that he sent to me, was, because I had Brandon, he looked at his messages, and I had a look at my messages, and the very last thing he said to me was, I just want you to be happy. And when I looked at my old messages and I saw that last message, I smiled at that message, and because that's what I want as well. I just want everyone to be happy. I just want us all to get on and to create a better future, and to stop the suffering, to end the suffering that we as a species put ourselves through. And it's not fair. It's not fair when good, well-meaning people die. And he really suffered. He really struggled. But he struggled, and although he struggled, he really did try and push for what he believed in to create a better tomorrow. And so I think that we should look at that aspect of him, that drive that he had, as an inspiration, and use that inspiration to create a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That was really important, I think, especially the last things you said, like all the people here in the chat are also commenting. On Monday evening, when we had our usual meeting, we were talking about exactly that, and I couldn't help but wonder why I didn't came up with that myself, because having dealt with so much trouble myself, I mean, just look at each of one of us, look at ourselves. We are following a train of thought, and we see that as the solution to the problems we have on this world, on this planet. And having such a mindset, living on a planet, in a world, in a state that is so distorted and so far away from that vision that we all share, of course leads, I think, many of us in many moments to really sad moments and to really sad places. And as you just said, we really have to give ourselves room for that, I guess, and we really have to take care of each other. That's absolutely true. Thank you for saying.
Yeah, that was really well said, Tom. That was really beautiful and from the heart, and of course, extremely important part of this meeting, I think, is what you just said. Does anybody else have anything they would like to share? Anything personally?
I kind of have a thought. When Woody was speaking, it kind of came to mind that I wish, I wish I would have known Gilbert, the other side of Gilbert. I'm sure we would have been able to have a beer together, and the fun side. I only knew the TZM side of things, and he seemed a lot fun. I think I would have liked to have worked with him when I did have a chance to talk to him. We both had very enjoyable conversations. We honestly, in some ways, we were almost cut from the same cloth, basically, in some aspects. So that's a possibility of why we didn't, we may have clashed in some aspects. But I would have loved to have helped him out with TZM way back then. Maybe I would have been the other side of the coin of the more compassionate side. But it ended up not being that way. I just kind of, I kind of think in the back of my mind, my name is out in the universe. Maybe in an alternate universe, we got along. He taught me the salsa dance, basically, because I don't, God forbid, I know how to dance at all. And we would have beers and things like that, but it just ended up not being the case. I kind of wish it was what was the case, though, because I did enjoy the times where he wasn't, being authoritarian, trying to nuke the server and all that shit. He was fun to talk to. He was very compassionate. He cared about people and things of that nature. So I just kind of wanted to add that in.
No, and I can promise you, Bill, that your intuition or your thoughts are exactly true. Um, because now I would like to share my story with all of you of my relationship and such with Gilbert, um, if that's okay now. Um, so, just like with most of us, I think a lot of us had our first encounter with Gilbert while we were on TeamSpeak back in the day, in the very beginning of the movement, and we were used to having him narrate or host those meetings, or we would have seen him in videos of at some event that he was also being a host of. So having exactly this kind of, as Tom was describing, this kind of personality figure to a very huge audience. So I was very focused with the Zeitgeist movement in Germany. These were the people I was most familiar with, and people from the global spectrum, Peter Joseph, and at the time Ben McLeish, and James Phillips. Brandon, I actually knew your name quite a while. I just didn't get a chance to actually really see that you were also someone doing a lot of content related stuff until I actually saw you in person in Berlin, but we never actually talked. Um, at Berlin, I'm going to cut to the chase. It was the very first time I met Gilbert. Of course, I was one of the, I don't know if you want to say, because I was one of the activists of TZM, or a coordinator in that matter for Berlin. And I was at the time I kind of was a retired coordinator from Berlin. Was living in Ukraine for some years, and I just come back, and Max was basically taking the lead with everything there, and he and Frankie organized with Gilbert and some others to have the Global Z Day, Global Zeitgeist Day in Berlin, Germany for 2015. So I remember that Gilbert was one of the very first people to arrive into the. I think Brandon, you remember well. It was at a art gallery. It was at a art studio and theater facility that the event was held in. It was a pretty nice building where art projects or exhibitions are held, and it was a really nice space. And Gilbert shows up, and I think I don't remember precisely, but I think I gave him like a high five. I was just like, Gilbert, and he's like, yeah, and just basically that was like our first interaction ever. And so what happened is that afterwards Peter Joseph follows up, and then Abby Martin, and Gilbert is introducing them to some other people, and then suddenly Peter Joseph, this is the first time I'm ever meeting him, looks at me and he says, "Hey, how are you doing?" And I'm just like, "I'm nice to see you." And then Abby Martin later on gives me a big smile and talks and stuff, and then I'm sitting upstairs in like this what do you call just like this like a backstage or the upstairs area where people were prepping some things or doing some stuff. I was sitting down there with Gilbert and Abby Martin and Peter Joseph, and I had a fresh batch of Samagon, or as you perhaps know in English, moonshine, that was fresh brewed or distilled in Ukraine. And I brought it out, and I went to go show Gilbert because I already knew that he was a dancer and he had a reputation with partying, and he had a whiff of it, and he's like, "Bro, we so fucking know what we're doing tonight." And then Abby comes over, and then she's also flat like, "Oh, this is nice. This is pretty cool." And then Peter Joseph comes afterwards, and he whiffs the bottle of the Ukrainian moonshine. He's like, "And you guys drink this shit?" And I said, "I also clean my windows and my shoes with it." And Gilbert and we all just laughed our asses off. It was really nice. I mean, that was my first encounter with Gilbert, and then of course we were partying after Zeitgeist Day had ended, so we had an after party at the facility. Gilbert wound up partying, perhaps over partying with some other people there at the event, and I actually went with Abby Martin elsewhere in Berlin with Miguel, who was another, I think, pretty close friend of Gilbert. Unfortunately, he's not here with us as well this evening to join the Discord's meeting. But anyway, the next time I met Gilbert was another really special occasion that I really want to share with you all. Is that um, we it was actually Gilbert who basically spearheaded or was had initiated as well, I think, the perhaps the coolest thing that's ever come out of the Zeitgeist movement, and that is the Zeitgeist European Meetup. So he, Paulina, and Jacek, the two former activists and coordinators from the Zeitgeist movement in Poland, with collaboration with Gilbert, had created this new type of event. Basically, a gigantic meetup in Europe where everybody came together to hold presentations and do workshops and all this stuff. And I have to say is that even to this day, it has to be the coolest thing ever, coolest, not just of the Zeitgeist movement, but just the coolest event of any kind I had ever participated in my life. And I'm so sorry that the only two people that attended that meeting that are in this current international meeting is just Andre and myself. And Andre, I think that was the very first TZM event you ever took part in or whatnot, and where I met you as well. So I basically I this is also the very first time I was going to the Netherlands, and I had just taken my train leaving Berlin at the time. Or no, excuse me, I think I was coming from Bavaria from the south, and I basically had got crossed over the border to the Netherlands, and I believe I had to change trains in Amersfoort, and because there was some kind of an accident that happened, and that was going to delay me from reaching Rotterdam, which is the place I had to go to. So I had to go board another train, but I wanted to go call Gilbert and let him know, like, hey, listen, there's perhaps going to be a delay of me reaching Rotterdam because of this train accident. And he said, like, where are you right now? And I said, well, right now I just had to change another train. I'm in Utrecht right now. And he's like, bro, go to like the second wherever. And I was like, are you here? And just like, yeah. And I ran over to like the another platform, and there was Gilbert, and I gave him a big hug, and it's just like, how are you doing? And it was I was so happy to see him. And it was even more fun when he wanted to impress me with the Netherlands. I forget which store that is. Just out of the moment, I just don't remember it, even though I'm very familiar with it. There's a store in the Netherlands that's usually in all the train stations that doesn't have any cashiers, and it's automated. You just go in, take what you want, you scan it, and pay for it, and leave. And there's just maybe like a security guard that watches for shoplifters. And I was just like, wow, you're showing me technological unemployment before it's happened to the rest of the world. And he's like, yeah, pretty cool, right? And so it's like this is my first time in the Netherlands, and yeah, it was yeah, it was just showing me, like whatever, like a few things at the train station, and then we got on our train to Rotterdam, and then out of his backpack he pulls out some beer. Keep in mind, this is a Friday evening. There's a lot of people partying on this day, and I mean, we were just on the train drinking beer, just making funny comments, and just about what are we gonna expect like happening at the event, and just like all the other interesting stuff happening in the background, talking about something from TeamSpeak perhaps. And they're like, there's some drunk fellow ladies coming on board, and they're talking to Gilbert in Dutch and whatever. And at the time, my Dutch wasn't really so proficient, but unlike today, but I was able to get a grasp at that. He was like, they were having like funny conversations. Everybody was laughing, and then some other guys board the train, and Gilbert saying a joke or whatever to them, and they're laughing, and I'm kind of laughing too, and just we're on like our second or third beer before we get to Rotterdam, which took maybe I think 40 minutes or so from Utrecht, if I remember correctly. Yeah, the train rides in the Netherlands. It doesn't take so long to get from point A to point B. I mean, I think the longest train ride is 2 hours or so. But roughly around that time, we reach Rotterdam. We take a taxi to the school where the event was held, and um, I can go on and on about all the really funny things that happen, and I have videos on my old phone that I fortunately have still. I have them saved with me. For example, so as known that Gilbert was normally the host for a lot of these big events or international events for TZM, and Gilbert was a little bit nervous because he didn't prepare his speech, and there we are. We're sitting on these two inflatable beds in one of these like classrooms. This entire school that we have for the movement. We're sitting on these inflatable beds, and I'm recording because Gilbert has my laptop on his lap. He's writing. He's typing up some certain points he wants to make for hosting, and he's drinking a full glass of whiskey. And he's saying, "All right, Clifford, I need you to listen to this. How does it sound? Okay. So hi everyone. I'm Gilbert Ismail. I'm a global coordinator for the Zeitgeist movement, and blah blah blah. Oh my God, Clifford, this is so fucked up. I'm so fucked. This is so bad. Do you want to host the event?" Like he would say stuff like this to me. Like I'll have to show the videos someday or whatever, and I hope it can bring some joy, as it brought me laughing in tears sometimes. And I mean, it would be really funny, for example, because like the event was 3 days long, and for example, most people woke up quite early, around like 7 or so, 8, and we would wake up for breakfast, and we would, for example, then yeah, we would get to the cafeteria and talk or whatever. I think I remember Paulina took a picture of this, and this was actually, so everybody was already out of bed, but it was Gilbert still in his like his suit, like he had like a really fancy kind of like dance, not a dance suit, I guess, but just like a nice pair of pants and shoes and like a nice it's almost like a Woody Allen jacket, sort of. I don't know, but he was looking nice, and there he was, passed out, still snoring on the inflatable bed, barely on it still. It was so hilarious to witness, and you know, he woke up, of course, some hours later or whatever, and he was happy, of course, to see everyone and all this stuff, and yeah, I mean, of course, we drank the Ukrainian moonshine once again because I brought that with me, the Samagon. And, the energy, everybody was having a good time. Everybody was so pumped and so enthused. And, I think what was really special about the European meetup, the very first one, was when it was the finishing touch. It was the last gig of the program, and that was that Gilbert gave a salsa workshop at the end. Or it wasn't really so much salsa. It was kind of like mixed dancing. It was a bit of salsa. It was a little bit of like some just regular like dancing in pairs and stuff. And what was really beautiful is that, if you didn't get a chance to, like, for example, meet or talk to some people at the meetup, which, I mean, there was over about 60 to 70 or 80 participants at the first European meetup. It was nice because there was something that we were like dancing with each other, and then after 2 minutes, Gilbert would ask us to rotate partners, and that's how, for example, I got to talk with Veronica for the first time from Italy, and then I met some other really lovely, intelligent other people from the Netherlands. I think that's also when I first actually bumped into Case, when we were dancing with partners close to each other, and we just like said hey to each other, and just some other stuff. I mean, it was so nice, and Gilbert was obviously having a very nice time, and he was very thankful, for that people participated in his workshop and stuff. And yeah, I mean, that event left such an imprint on our souls and on our memories of what a great time we had. And this, it felt like that if a post-scarcity economy was to begin tomorrow, I think we were all at that point like convinced that it would because of that event that we were at. We were just so pumped and so enthused, and just the energy was just off the Richter scale basically. And it was such a great feeling that we decided to continue that event with the next European meetup in Kiev, Ukraine. Um, and then, of course, we had the next one, the third one in Enköping, Sweden. And the next one is actually supposed to take place in Italy, maybe this year, or we'll see how they are working it out. But that is, to me, in my opinion, one of the biggest things I'm most grateful for Gilbert for was starting that event, and that we molded and cultivated it into a really interesting event of both sustainability, community, social values geared towards well-being, cultural and historical um, exploration in Europe, and showing that to other Europeans or international guests, all the interesting things of those European aspects. I mean, the whole thing was really amazing, and that has to be one of my fondest memories of Gilbert. And that was actually the last time I ever saw him in person. Was um, when I parted ways from Rotterdam. I gave him a hug, I believe, and then I rode with my very good friend Dennis from TZM Switzerland back down south to Bavaria. And of course, I kept in touch with a little bit with Gilbert after that, throughout the next few years. But um, perhaps it doesn't. It makes a lot of sense to mention that about 2017-ish, around when after when the Global Zeitgeist Day in Brisbane, Australia came to a close. That I believe that was the what was that? That was the seventh. That no, that was excuse me. That was the ninth event, the ninth Zeitgeist Day event, and after that, Gilbert just kind of disappeared. He disappeared, and very few people uh, got any word from him or heard back from him. I remember because I have Gilbert's telephone number still, his cell phone number. I remember consistently calling him for over a year and a half or almost 2 years, text messages, phone calls, no response, nothing, nothing at all whatsoever, and it left me feeling very curious, like what was going up with him. And I think the when was the last time I got a call from him? Is that it was maybe in late 2018 that I finally got a call, and I asked like, "Hey, where have you been? Is everything okay?" And he didn't really say much. He just said, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm just, I'm with my mom right now, and I'm just gonna be here with her for New Year's, and I'm just taking it easy." But if you happen to be around, I think it was the northern part of Amsterdam that I think he was living, if I remember correctly. I don't remember, but the point is that he said, if you're in that direction, just give me a call. And I'd love to see you, man. Love you, Cliff. Bye. It's like, okay, I didn't get around to doing that when I returned to the Netherlands, because I've for a few times I had several occasions for business, and also seeing some relatives over there, and yeah, New Year's. But I never got a chance to see Gilbert ever again, unfortunately, in person. Yeah, and then when 2019 happened, I mean, I don't want to get into so many details, but that was a really difficult situation that we had going on when, yeah, as Andre mentioned, that when he really wanted to get back into the movement after for being some time away, it's he wasn't the same person. He was really he obviously was not doing well, and I don't think we really knew what was going on so much. I mean, what was the situation? But the symptoms were very blunt and very loud, and very clear that he was very disturbed. um, from something, from some things, and I never again had a never, I never after that had a normal conversation with Gilbert after that. And that was the thing is that, I do have some messages somewhere on Telegram or perhaps on Facebook that are buried that he had messaged me, but for the most part, I mean, they were mixed in with so many messages of anger, of Zorn. I think that's the German word. Rage basically, and just like it was I couldn't even read this stuff. I had my hands so filled with work and with trying to then organize the next Zeitgeist Day in Reykjavik, and I could not get invested in the this chapter of madness that Gilbert was going through. And it's I have to be honest with all of you right now when I say this part is that, knowing who I am and just how I deal with this stuff, I was very cold to Gilbert. I was very, very cold as the icebergs in northern Iceland. I was that cold because I knew that what Gilbert needed is that he needed very specific help, special help, and he needed somebody to really I don't know how someone to sit with him through all that. Um, and I was not the right person to go to for that, to be that person to hold his hand or hang on to him and keep on giving him support. And um, I was very cold because I just simply ignored Gilbert. I stopped receiving his I stopped reading his messages. I stopped. I just never gave him a reply ever again. I think the last reply I ever gave him or ever wrote to him was in 2019, maybe at the very end, beginning of 2020, when I just told him that everything for Global Zeitgeist Day is okay and under control, and that you don't have to worry about it, and you can just do something else in the movement that is of your concern. And I think that was the very last message that I ever wrote to him. And he wrote a bunch of other things, like literally, like I stockpiled like 20 plus messages to me, and I don't think I ever bothered reading them. Or maybe I did at some point. I just don't remember at the moment. But I never responded to any of his messages ever again, and I was focused on other things with my job and other stuff in the movement, and I just didn't want to get involved in whatever was driving him mad because again I couldn't get involved in it, and I'm not the right person for this kind of stuff. So yeah, and of course, cutting a short story short, I mean the madness had gotten so bad, and of course there were many people. There was many people trying to help Gilbert. Many people from the bottom of their hearts that we were trying everything we could to help him. Because the thing is that even though there were so many of us that had issues or that had their controversies or not their controversies but disagreements with Gilbert, we love this guy. He was all this stuff that we've been talking about so far. It's just like all this energy and this drive, and that's what the movement requires. That's what it needs. And even now, especially, we want to keep Gilbert, but when things started to get so haywire, and eventually the thing is that again, to cut the story short, is that he wound up being banned from the movement. Things got so out of hand that he was basically removed from all the platforms of the Zeitgeist movements, and even Peter Joseph again also stomped his foot down when he was becoming alerted and alarmed of um, the type of communication behavior that he was exhibiting and stuff. It was beyond our capacity of any of us in the movement, and just what we have to go through keeping the movement together and our personal lives. It was way too much. It was too much for Peter as well. And so he was officially basically removed from the entire movement. Um, was that meant to be permanent? Was it going to be like that forever? Absolutely not. We would have found any way possible to bring Gilbert back in as soon as, basically seemed appropriate or plausible or whatever. And it was a really difficult experience. It was so strange because it was just like what I said in the very beginning. Like, Gilbert is somebody with such a very abstract history in the movement, because this is someone who had done so much, contributed so much, and had given us so much synergy, so much energy, so much drive, and now we had to push him out of this very circle. I've said this, in our moderation chat on Discord. Like, this really, I was of course very furious and angry and saying things, that were specific, that were very obvious, that I was very unhappy with Gilbert, and I think all the mods know that a lot of us felt this way. But at the same time, this felt really fucked up. Like, how did it get to this point? What's going on? And I think, just again, like, we were expecting at some point that we were going to, along the line, meet Gilbert again, whether virtually here on Discord or maybe in person. Um, the saddest thing I found out is that there were certain people, like Chihan over in Germany, that was having some chats recently, just a few weeks ago or a month, or a few months ago, with Gilbert, and mentioning that he wanted to come visit him in Germany, or invited him to come to the Netherlands, and so they can chat and meet up. And that he also did the same to Stefan Kangen from Denmark, and he will also want to meet up with him this summer. I mean, there was a possibility we were gonna maybe, we were gonna cross roads again, and maybe if we had met him in person, maybe we could have even just resolved the entire whatever conflict or whatever was making him really upset in regards with the movement, and maybe it could have helped him. I can't say for sure. I don't know, because at the same time, my gut feeling, I never got a good vibe when I saw, especially the past few years, I never got a good vibe when I saw anything notification of Gilbert popped up. It made me very defensive. It made me uh not feel good in general, and just that there was I was so alarmed of what could be at risk of something of like a wrecking ball in a glass house, as what we experienced with the Discord server. So I was feeling that way, but I was also still very open that we were gonna welcome, him back in, and or anybody for that matter that wants to participate and be of good contribution to the values of the movement or whatnot. I mean, this isn't a club, this isn't a cult, this isn't, anything like that. I mean, this is a group or a community of people that just simply want the world to do better, and everybody in it to live well, and shouldn't be excluded from that. And Gilbert was the right person who was thinking among those lines, at least when, in his earlier state of mind. And now it's the most painful thing to know that, we're not going to be able to have really a physically resolve that. And that all I can say basically to conclude is that, I talked to Brandon a lot about the future of the movement, how we're gonna bring it back to like how it was the earlier, and I'm no doubter. I am a believer that as time is gonna get really, really rocky and get very difficult, I imagine that a lot of people will wanna participate in the movement and try to help discover what can we do to live better and whatnot. And in the name of like what Gilbert has established already and stuff, it is in my biggest intention and in his memory and and respect and gratitude that we keep this going. We keep these international meetings going. We keep the Zeitgeist European meetup going. And we keep also just whatever, giving people beer or dancing with others, or doing goofy things or whatever we have to do to bring that hope and get the solutions in the role. Um, Very long rant, almost over almost a half hour, but this was experience with Gilbert, to say the least. This is my experience with someone that I had a very interesting relationship with, and somebody who I'm gonna miss very much, obviously. So thank you all for listening to my words.
Thank you for your honesty.
Thank you, Andre. I think though, there are actually some things. So there are. I mean, if anybody doesn't have anything to say right now, we do have some notes, and I did promise this that some people could not join the meeting today, and that they were going to leave um their condolences in the meeting pad. So we have two of them. There's actually one of them that isn't written down, but I'm just going to say it really quickly. On behalf of Stefan Kengen, with whom I telephoned with earlier, a TZM activist and also a presenter at several global events of the Zeitgeist movement, from Zeitgeist Day to the European meetup. Very, very wonderful person, and he was also a dear friend, with a dear friend to Gilbert. And he could not make it this evening, and he wanted me to say on behalf that um, he is so heartbroken to know about his leaving, his passing right now at such an early age, and that we we have so much to thank Gilbert for, basically, for all the things he had done and all the good times that he made possible in the Zeitgeist movement. And that Stefan said that he had worries about him with his health and, the drinking and some other stuff. And yeah, he always wanted to be as good of a friend and always be in touch with him. And, was always a pleasure. He didn't have anything negative to say about Gilbert, only positive. That's what Stefan said, and that it only breaks his heart that Gilbert was planning to come visit him in Denmark, and now that that's not going to happen. Stefan feels really terrible about it, so he sends his condolences and gratitude for this meeting for tonight. Um, There are two others, but I'm wondering, because maybe you guys are sick of listening to my voice right now. Would somebody like to read the two condolence messages there? Maybe would you like to do it, Brandon?
No, I think you're doing fine, Cliff. Why don't you just go ahead? You're doing fine.
Okay, I guess I'll read them out then.
If you could, that'd be great.
Okay. We have two here. So this one is from Timu Kosomeki. Temu is a right now you could say a TZM activist in Heteus or in Break, former coordinator for the Zeitgeist movement in Finland, and was also someone that got involved in the GCA in the very later days before it was disbanded. And I think through that he met Gilbert, if I remember correctly. And he writes, Gilbert wanted the world to be better, and he did his best to make it so. He had a big heart. I will forever respect and miss him, and I am glad our paths crossed. Thank you, friend. We will take it from here. You can rest now. With love, Temu. And yeah, and Temu also sends his apologies for not being able to make the meeting. It's very early for him, where he's actually in Australia at the moment, and I see he's online on Discord, but I don't think he's able to really attend the meeting. Um, this next and the final message that we have to share right now is from actually Mika Kubler, who is in the Philippines right now. Also similar time zone, too early for him to make the meeting. He writes, My first memory of Gilbert, aka Dark Dancer, was at the first international TeamSpeak meeting I attended. It was something like 3 a.m. for me, and I was glad to get into the meeting, which was pretty much at the maximum limit of 150 or whatever it was. He coordinated the meeting. I occasionally bumped into him on the forum, which was busy back in the day. Then fast forward to 2017, and he introduced me for my Zeitgeist Day presentation at the Brisbane Zeitgeist Day event, where I was giving my first presentation on the price of zero transition concept. He and I didn't always see eye to eye, but I did care about his health, and I was glad when he'd gone into rehab. Although I don't think his sobriety lasted a particularly long time, and alas, it seems like his health issues got the better of him. Gilbert was nearly a force of nature within the movement and certainly stirred things up and knew how to get activity happening. He's left a mark on the movement, and I'm sad to hear of his passing. That was from Miko Kubler.
Thank you.
Yeah. Um, I also want to say another thing that's really important that's perhaps necessary to announce, and that's that, um, as we know, the shitstorm situation with Gilbert that we're referring to that began a few years ago when I guess his health got very bad and he was causing problems here on the server. So Gilbert was banned from the Discord server. But I've spoken about this already. Um, at least with Tom, I believe. But I think we've decided to make it as a exception that this is not to be cynical or try to be ridiculous or whatever. But we're gonna unban Gilbert from the Discord server. Not like this is gonna have any. Of course, this doesn't really do much for him, other than that this is basically what he ultimately wanted. He wanted to be unbanned for the server to talk to people. But also, this is going to allow all of you now, if you go into the search engine in a few hours and you type in Gilbert's name, you'll be able to find the messages that he made. The disgusting and the beautiful ones that he made for the short time that was on here. So I think we can at least owe him that much that, we kept our word that we would unban him at some point. So we're going to do that. And yeah. Um, there's so much we can talk about with Gilbert, and there's one thing I want to make clear to the people here right now or those that are listening in the future on the thing is that, this movement is not about idols or about having kind of like guru figures, for example, or leaders. This is a leaderless movement, and the founder of the movement, Peter Joseph, he always advocated the movement. One of the big things about this movement is learning to be your own leader, and this is the leaderless movement. I know there's so much controversy in that saying and statement because of some stuff in history or some just egos overlapping over each other or just misunderstandings, basically just some poor communication, but it really is the truth. Where Yeah, thank you, Brandon. This is a leaderful movement, so but at the same time you're being that full leader. You're learning to be that leader. You're learning to be that change what you want to commence in the world, and we do it together. We don't stand underneath Gilbert or Peter or any other person in the movement. I mean, these are two names that happen to be very well known in the history of the movement, but they actually haven't even really been, active very much. And now there are other people that are taking up initiative and convincing that leaderfulness, so to say. And I've seen so many new faces, and you know, I say now there's a new generation of people in the zeitgeist movement that don't even know who Gilbert even was. They never knew who he was because they came after the time of the GCA and after the time when Gilbert basically had left the movement. And there's a lot of people that just don't know who he is, who he was. And that's why I think this meeting, for especially today, this assembly meeting, was extremely important that we do dedicate this one meeting about him. So that way in the future, when there's so many other new people involved in the movement and there's a whole new generation of global and local activities going on, and you know, it's hard to get to know each other. I mean, let's not forget some of the people that made this whole thing possible. That basically they made their mark. I also want to mention that Björna, for example, from Sweden, I think has to be the very first TZM activist that had passed away before Gilbert, from Sweden, from a canoeing accident. And you know, we also, in really strong honor, I mean, most people in the global part of the movement perhaps did not really know who he was because he was mostly active in Sweden, but he did attend, I think, two global events or whatever. But it's no matter. I mean, these people, you know, this is a really difficult cause that we want to fight for. And exactly as Tom was describing it earlier, to end the suffering, all this needless suffering that are very chaotic and outdated and very, just a very unmindful system is producing, and that there is another way, there are possibilities, there is hope, and there are solutions. This is basically the loudest or the boldest print that the zeitgeist movement is trying to basically tell everyone that um, we don't need to be continuing going this way, especially if it's going to be detrimental for our survival, and that it may lead to extinction, basically. And this is what Extinction Rebellion, other people even that grew, that came after the Zeitgeist movement, have been saying. But back to my original point is that, you know, we have this new generation of activists coming, and they're gonna become their own leaders. They're gonna make their own contributions to the movement and such, and to different projects. And you know, keep in mind is that who knows what the I mean, I can say the movement has changed a lot since when Gilbert first initiated a lot of these different meetings or projects or platforms or whatever. I mean, a great deal has changed and some hasn't. You know, some things have been somewhat the same, for good and sometimes for bad reasons, or not, or I shouldn't say bad, but maybe not for the best reasons. But hey, you know, I'm gonna say it. We don't have all the answers. We're doing everything we can. We're doing the best that we know, just like Gilbert was. And again, I was very much in disagreement with many things that Gilbert what he was doing, and how he wanted to manage the movement, and if we even should manage it in this direction. I mean, basically, yeah, I mean, we don't need a central figure to be doing stuff this way, or like the way how it was done before. We're doing things differently than Gilbert did it, and we're not doing it against his will or how he wanted it, but we're doing it in favor because it was in his will to make the movement work and function in the best and way possible. Um, Sorry, does anybody have anything else to say? I don't mean to be dragging the meeting on so long and stuff, but I feel like it just, you know, we're not going to have another meeting like this. I mean, these are our final words, so to say, in such a fashion to our friend and our colleague. So if anybody has anything else they would like to say before we end this, please, by all means, say what you need to say for Gilbert.
Yeah, okay. Hi, everyone. My name is He. I'm from Malaysia chapters. If you ask me about Gilbert, honestly, I don't know much about Gilbert. However, I believe I may have come across with him indirectly in original forum. I think it was back in 8 or 9 years ago. The original TZM forum, I believe that's where the most of the communication take place. Back then, I was also very active, posting, replying in the original forums, and that time the global chapter administration is also still around. I also managed to sign up for the Malaysia chapters. If you go to the official the zeitgeistmovement.com, you go to the bottom of the page, the Malaysia chapters. So I'm the person that register the website. It will redirect to our official Facebook group. Uh, I'm not sure if Gilbert are involved with the earlier days with those organizing things, but I also sign up on the mailing list. Back then, there was a mailing list, and they post email regularly to all those who are signed up in the email mailing list. I did join the TeamSpeak server like only once or twice before that. Maybe I've encountered Gilbert, but I'm not entirely sure about it. Perhaps the effort was organized by him. Uh, I would say I'm really grateful for that. Yeah. Then I was off from the movement for many years, for a couple of years, due to the full-time jobs. Now I come back, and then there's a Discord server that most of the people are already using, so they no longer use the TeamSpeak. So my condolences to Gilbert and his family. Yeah, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, He. Um, Anybody else? I think especially I've said a lot of things, and we've heard a lot of interesting things from everybody else, and we've heard all the beautiful things about Gilbert, who he is, and what he's done, the stuff he's done as a person, from everything from being a dancer to being an activist in the Zeitgeist movement, and the impact, the both positive and maybe even the negative impact he's had on us in the movement or whatever. And you know, I just want to say one thing. If I could, you remember, like, you guys have had like last messages from Gilbert, and he said that that he loves you guys, or that he wants the best for you guys, and etc. Leaves a heart emoji and stuff. I don't think I ever got that, because again, I was very, again, when Gilbert was not doing well, I was very cold. And had I known that this was going to be his destiny and that he was going to be leaving us soon, you know, I would have maybe just, I would have just maybe have gone to Gilbert and said, "No, want to get a beer, man?" If I saw him in person, I think that's exactly what I would have said. And let's go get a beer, and let's chisel, let's nail out all these points that we have to talk about with each other. And you know, everybody again from the moderation team knows that I was very angry with a lot of stuff Gilbert was doing, stuff that he did in the past as well, and the things that he was doing when he was very unwell, at the time when he joined the Discord server, and he was doing other things on Facebook, that posting things that were not good. I was very upset, disappointed, and extremely angered, but I want to make it very clear to all of you, and to him, posthumously, spiritually, that of course, I never hated him as a person. I never thought anything any less of him. That he was just another person on this earth, just trying to live, trying to just basically be and live well, and that's what he wanted for everybody else, as we know. and I forgive him if any wrongdoing that he did or anything that he did to hurt other people's feelings or he did to upset me, that I hold no grudges to Gilbert, and that if I did have any, then I promise everyone now that I've let them go, and that everything that Gilbert has done, both the positive and negative, has been a big lesson to me, and it's been a example of how we're gonna go forward in this movement, basically, and in the value of manifesting or not of manifesting, but also carrying out post scarcity concepts. If nobody else has anything else to add to this, I would like to end this meeting um, with a really quick poem. It's very, very short, just literally like 4 lines. But I was thinking, I love poetry, and especially of honor of Gilbert as a Dutchman, and also to Case and Serf and the other friends in the Netherlands. I was thinking about this Dutch poem that I stumbled across, and I'm sorry for you non-Dutch speakers. I don't mean to be exclusive, but just for the honor of Gilbert, I'm gonna say it first in Dutch, and then I'm gonna say it in English. Ga nooit weg zonder te groeten. Ga nooit heen zonder eens doen. Wie het zo nood laat ze ontmoeten, kan het morgen niet meer doen. Loop nooit weg zonder te praten, dat doet soms een hart zo pijn. Wat je morgen hebt verlaten, kan ze avonds niet meer zijn. Never leave without goodbye. Never leave without a kiss. For if one's end is sudden nigh, the last chance has been missed. Don't walk away without a talk. Ache your heart it might. What you leave behind at dawn could have disappeared by night. Tot ziens, Gilbert. Goodbye. You can stop too, Bill, if you want. You can stop the recording or whatever you like, but I'm finished. I don't have anything more to add.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just wanted to add something to that because I liked it. I liked the poem a lot, and um, you know, what he died May 9th, 2022. You know, hopefully it gets people thinking about how life is. I know this is kind of cliche, but you start to live your life and things of that nature when things like this happen. You start to think about things and appreciate the times you do have together. And, you know, because Gilbert, he didn't know who the fuck I was. You know, like it's weird, but you know, I talked to him, you know, decades ago when I had to deal with him, but he didn't know who the hell I was until we started to chat, and part of it, I was like, he seems like a pretty chill guy. Honestly, I wish we would have did this earlier, a decade ago. But in the same premise, you know, you never know when you're gonna go. I'm sure he didn't know he was gonna go at that time. I suspected something like this might happen. There's always a possibility with Gilbert. It seemed like he was kind of overdoing it, but you never really know until it happens. And you know, you just kind of shit like this. You just appreciate the times you had with them, but also more importantly, you realize even more so, and I've always realized this, that time is the most valuable asset we have. It's the one thing you can't have enough money and just buy it back. So spend it wisely, but I emphasize this: spend it fucking wisely, because you could be pissing your time away, and time is the most important, the most valuable asset you have right now. You all are still relatively young, and I've always felt this way even when I was young. Okay, so when me and Gilbert were talking, Gilbert's like, "Holy shit, you're doing a lot of stuff." I'm like, "Yeah." It's just kind of the nature of what I do, but please don't piss away your time. Basically, that's what I have to say.
I think you touch on like two really interesting things, and the thing is, yeah, time. It's interesting. The whole concept, the whole understanding of time, of yeah, that's a whole subject in itself. But it's just like something so valuable that I think people easily forget because our current system, if you will, has people so driven and so forgetful of of their days and or I mean I don't want to get into the subject about time. I feel like I could talk a long time about it because I mean, compared to how people understood days or time, let's say about even a few hundred years ago or 1,000, 2,000 years ago, when people were just watching the sun and then seeing where it was going and then knowing of when certain things were growing or when certain animals were to appear to hunt or whatever. Um, we've lost that. We're so fixated on these weird concepts in this weird society that has us forgetting about the value of time and the value of what it means when the sun is up or when it's down. Uh, I think that that is one big contributor why people really don't value their time on Earth or don't value time in general anymore is because that we've become so distorted in our current society of what that is time and why should people care about it. But the other thing is when you mention life, I mean, my Polish doctor,
I was going to
my
say something
doctor for
about time. If you, I just wanted to say,
Go ahead, Brand, sorry.
sorry, man. Just wanted to add, like, there's this really good Da Vinci quote where he talks about time, or that like no man is really in scarcity or like afraid of like you know his life like slipping away or like time slipping away or like getting older or anything like that. If like he's making the best use of his time, basically like making the best use and like creatively, you know, producing and well, you get the point. Paraphrase, massively paraphrase there, but pretty simple, but good philosophy.
It's true philosophy too. I really resonate with that. You know, it's interesting. I
I was about to say, with time, you could be wasting it at a job you fucking hate too. And this is more of kind of a zeitgeist thing. Like, you have a short amount of time. Please don't be wasting it in a fucking job you hate. That's all. If you're gonna live life, like make sure you live life and do what you want to do. Not aid the dreams of somebody else, and blow your time for someone else's dreams. Make your dreams happen.
absolutely. I think that's why, again, that's the original strong motivation within this movement too, especially is that this movement is driven by there's a really strong vision, there's a strong dream that we want to basically move away from being slaves to maybe not a dream but slaves to a nightmare basically, and people want to really experience a really like a peak experience of life basically, and living it fulfilled, and this having the human experience and having a very full and what's the maybe the word I'm looking for, just a human experience in fullness basically. I don't think that many people are living that experience the way we are right now in our current society. It's very, very oppressed and very restricted, and I mean it's based off of scarcity. And in scarcity, there's some winners and there's a lot of losers. And if you're one of the winners, well, good for you. I mean, you're up there and you have nothing to worry about financially or socially, uh, very up there and defended, or I don't know. But for the others, I mean, I think that's the main, that was the thing I was about to say really quickly though, Bill, is that it's what my Polish doctor once told me, is that you see, he asked me once, what is the cheapest thing? Or no, he asked me first, what is the most evil thing on the planet? And I asked him, greed. And he said, no, money. And I said, yeah, yes, I definitely agree with you. And he says that he has seen everything from beautiful families to what seemed like legitimate businesses, anything possible, you name it. But just put money into the equation, put some money in there, and he's seen in his life, he's seen, especially with the rise of capitalism in Poland. Before it was a communist state. Not saying he was a big fan of it, but the point is that when money really started to be introduced in this whole notion of acquiring and having to really fight for your living or whatever, he saw money destroy tons of families all over the place in Poland, in the United States, and he sees the evil that it does, taking people from people that really loved each other or people that had really solid, tight relationships, now whipping out blades and trying to stab each other's back and take what they have and bring it into their own. And the disgust of that is really felt. He also asked me, though, the second question: what is the cheapest thing in the world? And I didn't really think I replied the first time, but he said, life. Life is cheap. Doesn't take much to make life. You get a pair together on whatever circumstances, romantically, or two drunk people at a bar, and they have a intimate experience, and life is being made. But once when that life is born, to get food, to basically shelter it, grow, and at some point, that person from a baby to adolescent to eventually an elderly, there comes health problems. And you have to think about it. It costs nothing to produce life, basically. It really doesn't. But to preserve that life, to keep it going, to help it have a good, healthy life, that costs something. That costs something. And preserving life is expensive, but life itself is cheap. And that was the message that he taught me, and how much that really resonates and how much that teaches me what kind of a society we live in. It makes me really understand again why I am also in this movement, because I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that notion. I think that especially Gilbert and all these other people, or I think about this, for example, like my family and friends in Ukraine right now that are constantly under the threat of of being fucking blown to smithereens. I mean, for what? I mean, do they deserve that? Is that the value of their lives, is to be destroyed by a by like a by 100 ton coming gunpowder of hail of rockets or whatever? I mean, what's I don't mean to rant on that too much, but it's just like, it's exactly what the movement says that we're trying to expose, is the value disorder. It's a big thing of values that are completely distorted in our society, and have led us to this point that no, we're not going to distribute things to other people, compassionately and more in an equal manner, so to say. We're not going to do these things because it's too expensive to do so on these scarce circumstances. But under what scarce circumstances? Out of bullshit scarce circumstances. It's all an illusion. This whole debt system and paradigm, you know. Again, I don't want to get into that rant either, but I mean, I think you all get the point. What I'm trying to say is that um, This is not a system that obviously cares about our well-beings. It doesn't care about ours. It didn't care for Gilbert's, and it's not going to care for our generations after us or our kids. So I want to change this. I don't like it the way it is.
Yeah, totally completely agree with you. Yeah, that's why our Malaysia chapter have an ongoing project that it provide permanently free shelters if any activists needed it. Things like wait a minute. Hold on, just give me 1 second. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, I would like to reiterate what is wrong with our societies. The purpose of TZM trying to educate and spread awareness to the people, to the societies. For example, the rich, they're willing to go through hell, spend a fortune lobbying government to protect profitable oil industries. They're willing to bribe politicians, amend laws to favor corporations, pimping hustle, persuade business elites, legislative for bailouts, exploit laborers, slaves to work overtime, underpay them, faking business account numbers. This behavior is the rich capitalists. They don't like to pay for things. They wanted free things. A recent case like Russian invading Ukraine. It is not Russian is bad. Nobody is born to be bad. Everyone is a product of their environment. Environment has an invisible structure upheld by our society. That's why Russians are behaving like this. In fact, I believe with the passing of Gilbert, uh, before that, I believe he may have most likely the reason why we have a lot of problem is because of financial related issues. So there is also part of the existing of our economy and environment, the invisible structure that is upheld by our society. So that's why I believe TZM is playing such an important role, trying to educate and aware people about what is going on in their daily lives. So how do we change the structure or convert from capitalism to free economies? RBE is the solution what they are looking for. Our chapter has a project called the Zeitgeist Commune Housing Project. This is which provides a physical place for meeting and permanently free accommodation, permanently free shelter if any activists needed it. The goal is moving from primitive to civilized, advanced sharing societies. Uh, it is also a transition project towards a post-scarcity society, post-scarcity model societies, transition towards abundant access, transition towards RBE, reduce the dependency on the monetary slave systems, which is basically like some by the new human rights movement book, moving beyond poverty, politics, and wars. Communal housing project, in my opinion, is the easiest project and almost anyone can do. The more people share, the more people will depend less on monetary system, also changing the structure of capitalism. However, don't expect our chapter can provide a comprehensive solution. It is not going to happen. Capitalism and exploitation is here to stay. So each activist need to have a specialized solution, then combined with other chapter in a collaborative manner. So don't take it as don't see this as a competition. There is no such thing as competition. It should be seen as a collaboration. Only then the society able to transition away from capitalism without affecting their existing living standards. Okay, about the commune housing, this is not an attempt to create a hippie commune. Okay, this particular location has nice facilities like beach, park, swimming pool, gyms, playground, lakes, nice environment. It has a futuristic high-tech environment, city of future model. So I will post the link at the picture, and I will post the picture link in the chat room. So check it out.
Thank you, P. Tom, what do you gotta say, mate?
About what?
Just what your thoughts are.
Well, I don't know. I have a lot to say, but I'm kind of not feeling too good today. So, I just really, this just really reminded me how fucked up the world is, that it creates situations that lead people to engage in self-destructive behaviors in an attempt to cope with the shit that we have to face. And I just see it all around me. So many people around me doing things that not only hurt themselves but hurt the people around them. Uh, and it's not because they necessarily mean to or they want to, but it's just this world is what it drives people to become. It's what it drives people to do. And we really, really just need to fucking break the cycle and start being more kind and compassionate and start really caring about people and recognize that when somebody is experiencing difficulties like Gilbert was experiencing, that person really needs help. And while we might not be able to help them, in the full complete way that they need it, we still need to try and be as supportive as we can to people around us that are struggling. Just make sure we're checking in with people and asking people if they're okay, and creating an environment where people feel okay to speak out and to not feel concerned or worried that they're going to be judged. About, because there's a stigma in this society, about sharing our feelings and sharing the things that we struggle with, and I really want to see that stigma removed, and for it to be okay to speak our minds about the reality of things, because people really struggle to face the reality of things, and I think that's why we have, you know, look at what's going on with the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. I mean, it's a big distraction. Everyone's getting so engaged and involved in this other relationship, this other thing, these two entertainers who are at each other's throats, and there's so many other things in this world to be fucking thinking about and be concerned about. So many more important things to be addressing, but oftentimes I have conversations with people and I, talk about difficult things, and people just don't want to hear it, because it makes them feel uncomfortable. And so we end up self-censoring. We put on this persona: when you're around your friends, you're different to how when you are around your family, and so on and so forth. And so we're constantly putting on this fucking mask, this false version of ourselves, and we're not being true to ourselves. And I just really want to create a community, an environment where we feel safe and comfortable to actually be ourselves, and to not feel like we have to hide something, because a lot of people that turn to things, you know, destructive behaviors, whether it be an addiction to shopping or eating or drinking or smoking or whatever it is, a lot of people turn to that as an escape from reality, an attempt to self medicate, to soothe their wounds. And it's very upsetting to see just the sheer number of people that do that. I have never met a person in my life that doesn't engage in some sort of addictive behavior, some sort of self-destructive, damaging behavior. And it's got to change. And the only way it's going to change is if we start creating communities, compassionate communities, where we can actually start looking out for each other, and creating a supportive network where people feel comfortable to speak their mind, and to share their frustrations and share their anger, even, because that's another thing that's so frowned upon in our society is anger. Like, you can't express anger. And anger is a very natural emotion. It's so fundamental to our being. And anger tells us that something's not right. And so we've got to figure out, like, what can we do to solve the issue that is leading to people becoming angry? Because I'm very fucking angry. I'm very angry at the state of the world. I'm very angry at what I see on a day-to-day basis in the news, when I go outside, when I walk down the street. Just so many things anger me, and there isn't a good outlet. And so what happens is people bottle it up. And when people bottle up their anger, when people bottle up their frustrations because they're too afraid to let it out in a safe way, in a supportive environment, people turn to destructive behaviors. And so, I really want to see more attention paid to people facing the uncomfortable realities, the uncomfortable truth of things, and to be okay with being angry, and being okay with other people being angry, because it doesn't have to be a negative thing. Like, anger is so fundamentally important. It tells us something's not right, something needs to change, something needs to happen. I don't think any of us here would be involved in the Zeitgeist movement if at some point we didn't experience some extreme level of anger or frustration at the way that things are. Anger is a motivator. It's something that can drive you to do destructive things, or it can drive you to do positive things. And when you're in an unsupportive environment, that's when you see the destructive behavior. And when you're in a supportive environment, that's when you see the productive, constructive behavior. So that's what I think is important anyway.
Well, I mean, what I can tell you, Tom, is for someone like me that also has my history of whatever anger or so, I mean, that's perhaps one of the reasons that got me into boxing and kung fu and mixed martial arts, because it was a really amazing thing to basically let out a huge cramp up full of energy and frustration on many things. And at the same time, also art for me was another really big thing. You know, what leads all this anger is that we are in such a society where we are basically unable to express ourselves. that basically there's more emphasis on trying to accumulate more money, for example, or more wealth than there is to being able to express yourself freely and to communicate basically what your needs are or whatnot, because you're not really able to do that. And that's why, for example, you see really violent outbreaks of people just completely losing it and killing each other and stuff, because there's so much of that anger being repressed and being unable to be and unable to really naturally come out. It perhaps anger doesn't normally have to come out in like rageful fits or and necessarily trying to hurt other people or whatever. That's just when it reaches the tipping point where there's way too much and the body just doesn't know what to do with the tension or the anger anymore, and it gets drawn out to that. And also just that it even maybe even how should I say it, even perhaps even encourages people to further participate in this current system and further violent needs. So I mean, definitely, this is. I feel like that Gilbert, for example, was a very good example of that too, because of course, he was going on and ranting and fuck. I mean, he sent death threats to people and said things really awful things, and said that he was gonna purge the movement or whatever and get rid of all those that don't deserve to be in there or whatever. I mean, he said some really top to the notch nasty ass shit, but that's not because that's who he was. That's the opposite. We know that that wasn't the real Gilbert, but that's what this society, for example, will do to you when you don't have really any outlets for your anger anymore. And I think for a long time, I think dancing was Gilbert's outlet. I think that's what kept him in check, and that's what kept him more or less in a healthy state of mind most of the time. But I think something happened where he wasn't dancing much anymore. That it's just something in that range happened. That and especially I have to think of what happened just soon after that with the COVID pandemic, of what how fucked up that must have been for him. And I think even Case expressed that in his statement as well, that that's the COVID pandemic, I think, definitely played its role in Gilbert's life, and not being able to dance or do anything, and just he along many other people were losing their minds. And yeah, I mean, talk about anger. I mean, you saw lots of rage and violence going on, and in plenty of streets, especially when the reverse of the opening of lockdowns wasn't accepted in some places. I mean, I definitely understand where you're coming from, Tom, and so I think I'm gonna get you a punching bag for your birthday.
Yeah, I definitely want to punch some things. Maybe that'd be good.
Oh, I love my punching bag. I love it. That's why I beat the shit out of it.
Tom, you
Maybe
can
should take it away from you.
You can punch me if you want.
I would love to, Bill. Maybe you should come over here.
You and everybody else, motherfucker. It's like, stand in line.
Nah, I don't think I could punch you.
Yeah,
No, I'd want to, Bill. I'd want to come and give you a hug and give you a beer.
Thank you. I would love that. We should do it sometime.
One day.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Cliff. I wanted to say, your Polish doctor, I think, is a genius, and I was thinking, about the stuff you said about, yourself and how you had anger, and I had a bit of anger too, to be honest. Growing up in a series of foster homes, I mean, it should be obvious. So, I've had some anger problems, and it wasn't just a military thing. It was way before that, by far. And just to kind of share, how I did it was occupying my time with things, programming, I guess fixing tractors when I got dumped on my ex and things of that nature. But I just want to think of I think about Gilbert, and I think of people like him, and I think of I think I'm not going to tell you how to think, but I'm certainly going to think of whenever I think of the date of 5/9/2020, I'm going to think of Gilbert, and I'm going to think of him as a child growing up. Did he want to die on that date? Did he know he was going to die on that date? Of course not. But I think it would behoove everyone to remember this date 5/9/2022 as something to remember, but also something to be like, I don't want to go down that route. I don't want to do this. I don't want to, whatever it may be, if it's societal measures that brought him down and things of that nature, if it was, certainly it's a combination of a lot of stuff, but it's, also an important lesson that I hope 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30, 40, you will remember back to on that date. And that is your fuel. That is your energy source. That's where you start anew again today as something different. You're not quite the same. Something has drastically changed.
It's well said there, Bill. Very well said.
Darling, you there?
Yeah.
Earlier that you said about Peter Joseph mentioned about leaderless movement. Just want to comment a bit about that regarding that kind of statement. Yeah, there's some truth in that, but I also see that also as a problem. Yeah, sure, because TZM is supposed to be a leaderless movement. Yeah, that's right. We're supposed to stay decentralized, but in my opinion, that also is also a problem when you stay decentralized, because especially like project or activities that needed people to lead. So with a decentralized movement, actually is a hindrance from achieving anything. So I would reckon that sometimes we need to have a project leader so that things will get forward. You understand what I mean? Yeah, that's all I want to say.
I do. And maybe Brandon, I think you would love to comment on that. I think you would have something good to reply on that.
Yeah, I guess you saw my text field lighting up or something. Yeah, I mean, we're decentralized in the sense that, I mean, we were always that way. Everything, first of all, the movement was always decentralized. Everything would always feed up from grassroots, from the local level, and be discussed, at the state level and then to the international level. If the ideas, made sense, ideas would be elevated that way through naturally, through collaboration and communication, all that. We had, but so, anyways, the point is, while we have decentralization, it doesn't mean we lack organization. We definitely have organization and leadership and people at point of contact and all that stuff to communicate. Yeah, we definitely need. I mean, I definitely like to. I mean, phrase it as leaderful. A leaderful movement, even though it's a little bit cheesy, kind of stupid to phrase it that way. We should just be. Yeah, we all need to become the new leaders of this movement and of society, basically, as the adults who have inherited this really sick society that damages people, and and we need to become, people do need to step up. We do need leadership, actually. So I don't always use that phrase, need leaderless movement, but I mean, it's not to be taken out of context. Again, it's just about, yeah, this is beyond the age and the time of gurus and I, ideological figures that are easily just um, dealt with, and then the movement has no way of going on. So there needs to be many, 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 many leaders, and people need to develop themselves and maintain their mental health and support each other here, but be strong autonomously too, and realize, take perspective in this world, take care of themselves, because it's not a freaking game. It's definitely hard to survive and just stay sane out there. That is like half the battle. You have to do that, and to be able to offer your ideas and contribution, because it's worth it. I mean, it's a meaningful thing to be a part, to contribute, or to have that purpose about your life. Given the amount of problems and given the amount of potential at the same time. If there was all these problems, but there wasn't at the same time, so much potential, it might be a little bit different of a story. But it's just, yeah, that's a different tangent though. But yeah, the decentralized aspect of things has definitely hurt us. Like no one really accounts to each other anymore. There's just literally no organization now. No one like respects anyone's experience or like merit of what they had done. No one even cares. It's like very little cooperation, very little teamwork at times. Here and there, but I'm not like worried about that or so focused on that, because I mean that's just obvious, and we just simply need to lead with content. Those communicators out there and writers, uh, that are out there, that can put stuff out, should, and the rest will follow. Like our platforms will become busy again. People will want to participate. They'll have things to discuss. Like they'll be engaged again. So just have to, uh, as far as like building back that team again, the collaboration of things again. Because yes, there's no if you're talking about decentralization and our move towards that extreme like dysfunctional move towards, it's like dysfunctional decentralization right now. It's because we had little um, groups that would man, like the GCA, the Global Coordinators Association, or whatever it was even called. I don't even know, that was too overbearing and had too much focus on vetting, and like um, was over moderating and such, instead of focusing on the actual goals of awareness building and figuring out how to change the structure of society, how to facilitate transitional approaches, how to build, how to work on our communication, how to help people be sane and have like a basic train of thought, sane, like ideological framework that they can understand the world by, and like not just go insane. So that's the train of thought that we're building all the way from the individual level to the societal level, uh, to being able to discern reality itself, and not just be manipulated by things that are untrue in media, or fall into bad habits. But that's um, that's my perspective on that. Semantics of the decentralization thing.
Yeah, I mean, if I can add as well, I totally agree with that. I think there's two senses of the word leader. Often people think of, leader in the sense of an owner, a director, or a controller of the a movement or a company, like Elon Musk type figures. But then there's leader just in the basic sense of like someone who's an organizer, someone who can rally people, who's an effective communicator, planner, with the right vision and management skills. And for an organization to succeed, you need the second one, but not necessarily in a single person, but really just a structure that allows for, people to work together to organize the movement and rally, the movement. You don't really need the former, a single person who sort of owns the movement, but it definitely can help. It can help to have a strong sort of unifying person, but it's generally a risk because the image of the movement then is kind of at the whim of this single person. Because most people are normal, very flawed human beings, this can be a problem. So yeah, I just kind of want to tease out that difference. Like there's the image of the leader there who's sort of owns it all, which I don't think TZM needs, but we do need leaders who can organize, who can rally, who can plan.
Yeah. And like we need to get away from these archetypes, though. You know, like this hero, and I don't want to discourage that either. I think people should sacrifice as much as they're willing to. You know, like to become those new, like I said, leaders of things. Like we need that. We need a lot of that, hell of a lot of it. But these archetypes of like the victims and like the hero, like we need to stop hero like superheroing all this stuff like with the events and like just all out like just and get more organized. Kind of like Alt is really good at that. Like laying out schedules of things and just being methodical. Working as a team more. I know he could lend a lot of experience with that, given his background. And but I was going to say too that naturally there's going to be people that you know stand out more. As far as like leadership goes, there's always going to be those people that stand out, and we should never discourage that. Like Jesus. And if people hero worship those people, there's gonna be a natural like degree of that. It's inevitable. It's gonna happen. Like, people look up to those people. Like you just can never do away with that entirely. You just cannot like those of us just have to keep stepping up alongside those other people and again not. I mean, but yeah, you get the point. Because like let people be inspired. Let people, because I'm definitely someone who's was or at times frustrated with people who would just kind of obsess about Peter or follow him around too much or just online just seeing the way people just consume his information without participating in it themselves and taking it to heart, reflecting it back and like becoming a part of the direction themselves. They just kind of consume it like entertainment. It's like, but it's like you can only just yourself put out your own contribution. You can't just get frustrated with people. There's going to be some degree of that, naturally.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shut down the stream unless anyone has anything else to say. It's still up, by the way.
I already ended our stream like a half hour ago, but
Oops, my
no,
bad.
I'm good.
Okay, yeah, same. All right, I'll shut it down now.